Hello, everyone, and welcome to all the participants into the DevOps. So, participants, the agenda for today's session is going to be a complete view of what exactly is DevOps and how DevOps is vital to you. So, participants, to make it easier for you to understand, let me give a real life example that you can all relate with. Let's assume that you brought a product and that product is an electronic product and you're using it for the first time. Maybe you bought a micro oven for the first time and you're very new to use it. That means it's something that you have brought it from maybe from another country, from maybe from a new distributor who he's enabled it with some Bluetooth, and it is something which is a smart device which can understand your request to start the oven and stop the oven. Smart device. So here at this logic, once you did bring this electronic device for the first time, you felt it was not easy for you to go ahead and provision it. Provision in the sense you want to go ahead and box it, and basically you want to go ahead and unbox it, and you want to go ahead and start using it, but you're quite not sure how to use it. Participants, are you with me? Hello?
Yes,
Everyone, are you with me?
Yes,
So you have received a box which has Microsoft Oven in it, and it is something which is smart device, which takes your voice request. Now you are trying to unbox it, and you felt that it's not easy for you to go ahead and use it. Participants, can you tell me how would you go ahead and make sure that it is properly configured? What is your immediate action, participants, that you would like to do to make sure that it is properly configured? Anything that you suggest me, please do let me know.
we will check the manual booklet.
Very good. So participants, definitely the best thing to do is pick a manual, product manual, because the product distributor or the one who has designed the product will ask you to follow certain steps in this manual, asking you to go ahead and follow the steps for configuring this device by asking you to follow the steps. Maybe in the step one process, he will ask you to get all the items that are necessary for this box, or basically you'll unbox this by opening up the box and plugging it into a switch and then associating it to Wi-Fi. Step number two. Step number three, you will configure that machine with an IP address. Step four, you will identify with your smart device, Alexa or Google Home. You configure it. So instead of you doing a trial and error method, you going and doing a trial and error method, you have now reached up to a point where you have followed four simple steps to configure this device versus the trial and error. So participants, tell me which is more efficient for you, a trial and error method or a method that made it to get it done in the simple four steps using the manual.
The second option, the fourth step.
Definitely participants, we will be more comfortable to use four simple step method involving the product manual. Now that is what exactly people DevOps is going to tell you. DevOps is going to become the manual for you, the product manual or the deployment manual, a manual where you will be given the steps that you are required to follow. Instead of saying steps, let me put the word called processes to follow. We are required to go ahead and follow a certain process to build the project and to deploy the project. So there are some processes that are given to you that you are required to follow. Now you are able to relate with the example, people. Why did I bring the discussion of an electronic item? Because we will perform better if we know the steps that are to be used in configuring a device. Following the same logic, we will go ahead and run it into the DevOps engineering, where DevOps is going to tell you, or DevOps is a process where it will tell you what are the steps that you are required to take to make your deployment happening. Can I have a quick round of confirmation from all of you people regarding what is that DevOps? How to visualize a DevOps? DevOps is all about bringing the best processes for your application development and deployment. That is why it is comprising of two words: dev with regards to dev team, where the development is done, and ops team with regards to deployment, development and deployment. They will deploy. Okay. Now let's start to understand technically what is exactly DevOps. So in order to introduce DevOps participants, I would like to give you situations before a DevOps, that how DevOps was, or what was the situations before a DevOps and how is the situation after DevOps. That will give you a clear picture. So to understand this, as I said, there are two teams that I wanted to bring. One team is the ops team, the other team is dev team. So let's focus, what does dev team do on a day-to-day basis? If dev team is given a task, they develop an application. What they develop? Any software, any application, mobile application, website, portals, anything. They are trying to develop some kind of an application. That application development, I have given a name called development, which is with the word called, or it in an environment that I've chosen is dev environment. So technically, participants, you must be aware, for any kind of application, organization have certain standards that they develop application, they test it in a QA environment and release into production. So the first stage that the development team is given a task is to develop that application. Let's say I'll start speaking majorly from the standpoint of view, which is an application, maybe something like a mobile application which they are developing. So that mobile application will be developed by the backend developers, maybe Node developers, Node.js developers, Node.js developers, maybe backend, they are Java developers. They are writing some code with regards to that mobile application. That mobile application is not going to just work because the code is written. There needs to be a next process in the system. That's what we call it as build process. A build process, in simply said, or like if I have to put it in simple terms that you can easily relate, a process where the code that is written by the developer turns into machine understandable language. Machine doesn't understand you writing a statement, Java code, hello world. Machine doesn't understand the word called hello world. I will go and write a code in Python, for example, and say, hello world, ask it to run a command. Machine doesn't understand what is this print hello world. Machine understands only one, 1001, 10101. That's all. Machine understand only two numbers, 1 and 0. So we need to go ahead and turn this logic of human understandable formats into machine understandable format, which is binary codes, ones and zeros. You can't do that because we cannot go ahead and turn these commands into ones and zeros. So we need to do the process in terms of building. Building doesn't mean that you will turn printf into ones and zeros, just for your information. Build is a process where I will turn the source code that is written into binary language. Everyone, are you with me, people? Hello? Participants, do you have any questions?
Sorry, Kumar, didn't understand this one.
Yeah, exactly. For me also.
Okay. So I'm a developer. I did write a code, which is hello world code. I'll write print hello world code. Machines, your machines. Machine means servers, laptops. For now, you consider as a server. Your server, your machines don't understand what is print statement. They understand only binary language, 1 or 0. So to do this process of turning the source code that is written, the code that is written, we have to go ahead and turn this into binary language. Machine understands binary language. So that is one part of the build process, where this process is done by something called compiler. Compiler will compile human understandable language into machine understandable language. Machine understands only ones and zeros. So compiler is doing this job in the backend using build process. Hope now it is clear.
Okay, so like for getting the command to understand, we need to do the binary coding, right?
Binary coding is not done by you. There is something called a software called compiler in your system, like Python compiler, Java compiler. There were compilers that do this process of converting source code into from human understandable languages into machine understandable language, ones and zeros.
Okay.
Fine. So participants, this activity for you might not be important, but for a developer it is important. So now let's assume that the developer has written the code, you have taken the code, you built it. Now you want to confirm whether the application is running with this build process. So it is tested. So you will test it. Okay, the code that we have written, is it working? The application that we have built is working. So any application that you build will give you something called an output, right? If you build something, you will get an output. Technically, we call it as artifact. What we call it as? We call it as artifact. Artifact means you got something because you built something. You got something because you built something. You got an artifact. So that artifact is something which is a product, which is not software product, which is not 100% software product, but it's a product that needs to test. We need to test it. We need to confirm it. Then it becomes the product. So participants, now the artifact is given. So before we give it back to the developer, what we do, we will allocate to testing team asking, can you do a testing on this artifact? Maybe you are required to do a test case on it, run your test cases on it. You have to thoroughly test whether this artifact is working as expected. A lot of testing you will do to identify the bugs in this artifact. And then maybe you might have come up with around about 10 bugs that are very much required to be resolved, that you have categorized them, and you're giving back to the developer and saying, hey developer, listen, I could find some bugs that are there, which is in your artifact, which you need to go ahead and resolve it. So development team will go ahead and start working on it. So let's assume that in this process entirely, maybe 2 to 3 days they have invested. 2 to 3 days they have invested. And finally, it is expected once the code is given, needs to get deployed. But participants, this is what is in real life situation. Most of the time, 80% of the time is spent in this process. This has been, if you go out and talk to a developer and testing team, they always, instead of complementing each other, they will have always, challenges that needs to be addressed, because dev team says that it is working in my environment, testing team says no, it is not working in my environment. Now the dev team will not get an idea of what testing team do until unless they go out and get all those bugs identified and give it to the dev team. Dev team will start working on fixing those 10 issues. By the time he fixes, another 10 more issues will be identified by this guy. Everyone, are you with me? Because of this issue, it is going to delay the release process. Everyone, are you with me, people? Hello? It is going to delay the release process. Now let's go ahead and understand the situation from the perspective of the ops team. What is ops team going to do? So ops team, which is the operations team in this scenario, is going to give you sufficient infrastructure to run your application. What I meant by that infrastructure? Infrastructure means consider a network engineer, consider it to be a database engineer, consider it to be administrator, consider it to be your administrator who is responsible for managing server, storage, network, and databases. So database guys, networks guys, server people. So all those people are working in the backend, which becomes your ops team. They are responsible for giving you infrastructure. Infrastructure means something that is comprising of server, storage, network, databases. So ops team is working hard in the backend to meet your environmental needs. Maybe right now, participants, you take this VM, that is the VM I have written there, is nothing but your server with storage, network, database, everything ready. See their job is continuously, they have to support a developer who's developing the code. They have to go ahead and support your developer with regards to server, storage, network, everything they need, they have to support in different environments. So if you look at their systems or the way that they provision, they have to provision based upon the environment needs. They have to check whether the app is running in those machines. They have to do continuous monitoring, whether the application is running as expected. If something which is not running, they have to go ahead and start taking an action. They have to go ahead and start taking the logging information of the application. They have to start doing deployments. See, deployments here now, the code that is given by the developer needs to get deployed in lower environments also. Development team or ops team have to go ahead and do a deployment. If the developer and QA are fighting with each other, this will definitely impact the delivery for production, point number one. And it will have an impact even on the ops team because there are resources that are already running in both the environments. Now, why this kind of challenges do happen? Why? Because there is no process. So now let's assume that I have been assigned as a DevOps engineer for this entire process. Now I did get a job as a DevOps engineer for this entire process. So my company asked me, Kumar, you're responsible for building a pipeline or a process for this entire dev team and operations team to be brought together. So they asked me, can you go ahead and build pipeline using DevOps for this entire team that comprises of dev and ops team? Because these teams are having a lot of no process oriented tasks can you go ahead and turn into a task? Can you go ahead and turn into a process? And that is where the next segment that comes into picture is how will I go ahead and use DevOps to build a pipeline and a process so that will help the dev team and ops team to become process oriented. So what I'm going to do now, participants, I'm going to go ahead and start thinking like a DevOps engineer, where I'll keep in mind that I have to go ahead and help my two teams, dev team. What is a majorly dev team? They develop an application. Okay, I'm going to help them to develop the application. And the testing team to get the latest version of the code from the dev team. Okay, that means the latest version of the code should be given to the dev team, from dev team to QA team. Fine. So QA team is expected to go ahead and release the latest tested artifact as early as possible within a given timeline. So I'll go ahead and set a timeline that QA team, you are expected to go ahead and give us the latest code. Right after the development team releases the code, we will build it. We will give you the latest code, or you are expected to give the latest code maybe in a week's time, or in a week's time, or in a sometimes I can go ahead and say within next 2 days, I want that code to be tested and give. You guys have to give us back. But now the QA team puts a question, Kumar, how can we go ahead and share this? Because we don't have anything as a central repository to share this code with them, the artifact with them. Okay, now I have to address the concern that there should be something like to store an artifact. I need to store the artifact. Artifact storage is required. On the other side, my dev team comes and says, Kumar, we are working hard, but all we are trying to do is we are keeping the code at different locations. We also need a central location to keep all the code at one place. So I need my developers to work on source code. So they should have something like a source code, they can go ahead and use it. Okay, what else more? So dev team says, because we go ahead and contribute too much of code on a day-to-day basis, we need something which is very fast, very much continuous. We want to go ahead and have our continuous builds also taking place. Okay, we want a build to take place. So this is another scenario to be addressed. So I'm expected to have a central source code where the developers can put the code. I want to go ahead and do the build process here, and that too continuous. And then I have to go ahead and hand it over to my testing team with regards to artifact. So artifact storage is to be considered. Once the artifact, they need to go ahead and test it. Testing team will go ahead and do the testing. Once the testing is done, they will start going ahead at the deployment. So deployment we will consider later. So essentially, at this moment, I have to address storage with regards to source code, build with regards to the artifacts. Artifacts are created and tested. And how does they go ahead and communicate with each other? How will I go ahead and ask them to share that code and communicate with each other? Participants, that's where the pipelines that can connect these environments. So now I go ahead and start connecting them via the pipelines. So because of these pipelines, it becomes easier for me to manage my environments because I just need to move the code from one place to another place. Another thing, every team will have a visibility into the next team. Like ops team will be able to see what dev is team doing, dev team will be able to see what ops team is doing. Everyone, are you with me, people? Hello?
Yes.
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 Kumar, could you explain what is artifact storage means?
Okay.
And
You go
also,
ahead
Kumar, what is this pipeline? I didn't understand.
No worries. I'll explain. So artifact means, in simple terms, I have asked my developer, he has given me 1,000 lines of source code. 1,000 lines of code. It's very, very difficult for me to go ahead and run all the 1,000 lines. So what I will do, I'll go ahead and build this and turn it, or another way, one developer has given 1,000 lines, for example. There's another developer who has written 2,000 lines of code. Now, my job is to go ahead and integrate these two together to make the final output. So it is very difficult for me to go ahead and run them. So what I do, I go ahead and bundle them. That is like these 100 lines of code given by the developer plus another 2,000 lines of the code of the developer into a final product or into a bundled artifact. Got now a clear picture? Artifact. But this artifact is tested? No, it is not tested. It's just that I have bundled and I got an. This is the artifact. My QA team will work, identify the bugs. Identify all the bugs and resolve. If it is ready to release, we call it as product. We are getting a product for release. A product can be maybe the first version of your mobile application, maybe a CRM that you want, maybe a portal that you want to release, maybe a website that you want to release. Before that, we call it as technically artifact. Artifact, if you ask me, let's say you're compiling a car or you're trying to productionize a car development in a factory. Before it assemble, all the products we call it as artifacts. All those artifacts will be bundled, and that is the final product, which is the car automobile that you get. Clear? And we need to store those artifacts at a place. That's what we call as artifact storage. We are storing at a place, artifact storage. Clear?
Okay, so basically the role for the DevOps team is first we have to like get the sources, then we will build for that sources, then we will artifact that, and the fourth step is testing, right?
Correct. Very good understanding. Correct.
Okay.
Now coming up to the next question. The next question was about pipeline. Pipelines is something that helps you to connect different stages. Like you might have noticed, like, whenever there are pipelines involved, let's say there is a vertical pipeline and there's a horizontal pipeline where the water that flows from the vertical pipeline into those horizontal pipelines, we need something like a pipeline that connects a small curvature that can connect these two pipelines. So a pipeline is something which will help you to flow your resources from one environment to other environment. Pipelines. You'll get a visualized insights about the pipeline. Pipeline in DevOps is all about the connectivity that you establish between the different environments. Are we good now? Participants, are we good?
So Kumar, you said all these artifacts and all will be stored somewhere, right? So that the QA or the prod, they have the access to it, they can view it.
Correct.
Right? The artifacts and all.
Correct.
Then you mean the access is called the pipeline?
Okay.
Or
For now, okay, if you're not able to connect what is this pipeline, we'll do one thing. I'll just move on. As much as we get into the discussion more and more, you'll get more visibility to the pipelines. Don't worry. I'm not expecting that you will understand everything. You need to understand everything in day one itself. So don't worry. If you're not understanding at this moment, as much as we go into the sessions, you'll understand it. Because at this moment, if it is becoming difficult for you to understand, I would request you guys, don't come to a conclusion that in a day one itself you'll understand everything. So I'll try my best with giving you more and more examples, more and more UIs units that you can relate with. So by quickly summarizing what we have seen, that is like DevOps is going to be a change that a company would have to bring into their culture by bringing the practices and the tools that are required. But what is the benefit for a company? The question to be answered is, what is the benefit? Without benefit, the companies don't do it. The idea is they have to make their application release faster. They want to release their application faster, and they want to release their services having no effect with regards to their challenges. A company will have hundred of challenges inside their teams. So they don't want to go ahead and have these challenges affecting their business. So they want to go ahead and do a kind of a process that makes their delivery faster, and the way that they are releasing the applications frequently. They want to release the application frequently, and they want to go ahead and release their codes frequently so that their applications can be brought at the earliest. So are we good, everyone, at this moment? Participants,
Yes.
are we good?
Yes, Kumar.
Okay. Okay. Pipeline means channel which connect us department to department to get the outcome for the production. Fine. It's not only for production. Okay. Now, the aim is, till now, whatever I've discussed is all about a situation. A situation where I have something, dev team, ops team, challenges, but let's go ahead and generalize it. Generalize in the sense, how can we go ahead and make this a system that can be applied everywhere? Now, this is an idea that I had, that this is a situation of my dev team, this is a situation of my ops team, this is the process that can help. But in real life, we have to apply this logic everywhere. That's how it becomes generalized. Generalized means it is applicable everywhere, not only to my current situation. So participants, that is where the next concept that you are required to understand is CI and CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Very, very interesting, very, very important. So participants, everyone, are you with me, people? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Kumar.
Yes.
So now the keyword that comes into picture is CI/CD. So what does the CI stands for? If you ask me what is CI, the term CI stands for continuous integration. And what does CD stands for? Continuous delivery. Continuous integration for CI. CD, continuous delivery for CD. Now, a question might come to you that, Kumar, what is this CI/CD is going to do with regards to DevOps? What is going to do with regards to DevOps? That's a very, very important question to be addressed. So participants, the term CI/CD, if you have understood, it is all about word called continuous. Then what we have been doing with regards to the DevOps, participants, what we are trying to get into the DevOps. In DevOps, we wanted a pipeline to be brought in, or we want to bring a process that will help companies to their application faster. Can I request the participants to please mute yourself? Okay, so participants, what exactly was I discussing? I was discussing the idea of a process that helps the application to develop and release faster. A process. So I need to go ahead and adapt to that process that is fast and that is continuous. And that continuous, participants, you will find in these two keywords: continuous integration with regards to CI and CD. So this CI/CD is the backbone that is going to be part of every DevOps process that you develop. It means, if you have noticed, the first discussion that we have started was introduction to DevOps, where I have given you the challenges with regards to the dev team and ops team and what they have to go ahead, and we were trying to find a solution. We found DevOps is the best way to bring the processes and allow the process. But how technically it is possible? Technically, it is possible when you go ahead and adapt to the CI/CD model. The CI/CD model, participants, where you can see the C common word. This word is the one which is responsible for our DevOps pipeline. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. So in a continuous integration process, participants, the code is planned, the code is written by the developer, the code is built and tested. So this part is like continuous. It is done continuously, one after the other, one after the other. Everyone are able to relate with this CI model here? Hello? The CI model?
So in the
Yeah.
CI model, first we have to plan the code, then we are executing the code, then we are building, and then we are testing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, this is something which is in line with what DevOps will do. So that is one thing which is very much required. So what happens when the code is built, tested? We need to go ahead and do a deployment. So let's target now the release. Now let's start to release the code if it is tested thoroughly. What I said, the code that is tested and with no bugs, the artifact now becomes the product that is now ready to get released. It's the product release that we will target. We will deploy it into the, maybe let's say for now, I'll deploy into a cloud. Cloud is something that we will target. We will deploy into the cloud. And once it gets deployed, we go ahead and operationalize it. We measure the resources. Measure in the sense, is it working as expected? Is there any failure with regards to the way it is expected to work? If it is failing, how will I go ahead and fix it? So is there any new feature that I have to release? All these factors I'll measure. And then I will give it back to the development team. So they will plan, okay, this is the amount of time that is required for us to bring the new features. And this process will continue in a continuous manner. CI/CD. Exactly, like monitoring. I'll start monitoring my application and find maybe because of these bugs, it is not working as functional. So I'll report those bugs to my team. They will start fixing it. They'll plan, maybe I need 1 day time to release it. So this process, if we can automate and help my development team to write their code, build their code, and the testing team to test their code, and help my release team to release my application continuously, this is how the CI/CD model is now going to help me to achieve my DevOps pipeline. Participants, are you now able to relate with the DevOps pipeline people? Hello? Now, are you able
Yes.
to relate with regards to DevOps? So DevOps is all about the continuous integration model on one side and the continuous delivery model on the other side, how fast you can bring these two together. So that is going to be more benefit to a business because they can take away the manual dependency. So people are not getting involved. Automation is brought in. Costing is down. The release becomes faster. The environments become easy for you to go ahead and handle. Everyone, are you with me, people? Hello? Participants,
Yes, Kumar.
Yeah.
Yes.
now, with regards to pipeline, if you ask me, this is how a pipeline looks like. A pipeline that can bring water from one part of this into the another part, a pipeline, water pipeline, storage pipelines. So how a pipeline may look into a DevOps process, this is how a pipeline may look like, where the developers and the customers who are ready to take your project or the client that you will work for, customers. So as part of the pipeline, there will be a source code where the code is written by the developers, source code management. Now I have to formulate the logic that how a pipeline should look like. Now the pipeline should look like something like this. I should have my source code written by the developers at one place. I should be able to build it as part of the pipeline, the next stage in the pipeline. Then I would like to go ahead and test it in my staging environment. If everything is ready, I will go ahead and deploy into production. I'll continue this process, identify the bugs, release those requests, and this process will continue. That's how it's all about DevOps pipeline, people. So DevOps is an idea where I'm trying to go ahead and adapt to CI/CD model, continuous integration, continuous delivery. Now I'm building a pipeline. Now this is the pipeline that I'm going to be building. And using this pipeline, I will go ahead and integrate these stages and I'll achieve my CI/CD model. I hope now participants, with regards to the pipeline, is it clear? Are you able to visualize? This is how.
Yes.
So a pipeline would be like a workflow, right, Kumar? Like a
Exactly.
stage after stage.
Right. Collection of stages, maybe one or two or many stages that are expected to work by themselves. One stage will trigger another stage will trigger. So a continuous process is achieved. A pipeline is achieved. Exactly. It is similar to
So
your
workflow. So once the source code is developed, it immediately moves to the testing stage and then again to the production, right?
yes. We can move into production, but always it is a kind of good to keep a control on this. We have to keep a control. If it is required to release, we can release. Otherwise, we have to keep hold until unless it is required. So we can put a switch here. If okay, all okay, approval for production release. If not, rejection into the production. So
Okay.
it is always good to keep. So participants, let's quickly summarize what we have learned for today. So participants, we did start with the idea of DevOps. What was situation before DevOps to that of DevOps? We have seen how DevOps can bring a process to an organization. We have seen the backbone of DevOps involving continuous integration and continuous deployment, and how the pipelines have a role to play. So taking this idea, now I'm able to go ahead and put in front of you people the benefits of the DevOps, and now a generalized pipeline with regards to DevOps engineering that is backed up by continuous integration and continuous delivery. So in this scenario, you can see a continuous integration that involves source code, build, test, and then we go ahead and do a deployment from lower environments, if these are lower environments, into higher environments like staging and production, which is the higher environments. So I'm able to make changes, continuously test it. This is my CI model. And then my CD, delivery from lower environments to higher environment, I'm connected. So my pipeline is now backed up by CI/CD model, and that's how I'm able to get my generalized DevOps pipeline. So because of this, now my application releases becomes faster, my deployments will take lesser time, and I will save a lot of time and money to my company. So welcome everyone into the DevOps pipeline. Thank you.